Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today. Today I've got a great big terrifying lineup of Dogman / cryptid encounters to share with you. Before we get into these encounters, a couple links I'd like to share. The first link I'd like to share with you is Tromix Lead Delivery System, home of the original 458 and owned by Tony Remora, a true American. He designed an AR upper to be attached to your existing AR lower and blast 458 instead of 223 and 556. He designed this for our troops in the Middle East, to stop truck bombs. Now, straight across the board, guys, a 458 is gonna stop a truck. It's at least gonna slow down the Dogman. Tromix link is in the description below, and please check out some of Tony's other amazing products. On to my links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. I also started a GoFundMe page to help raise some money for urbex, cryptid hunting, and ghost hunting equipment. Now, if that's anything that you're willing to help with, that link is also in the description below. Now I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with these Dogman / cryptid encounters, shall we? Today's first Dogman encounter. I've always known the supernatural exists, and I really didn't want to believe it, but then I saw a huge Dogman. I was walking through the Meridian State Park, hiking around the lake. It was almost dusk, and I knew I wouldn't make it back to my cabin before darkness settled over the park. As I got closer to the bee caves, just about halfway around the lake, I saw a large shadow. Thinking it was probably just a big guy, I continued walking with my head down, hoping I wouldn't trip over a root or a rock. I soon heard this huffing sound behind me. I looked back and saw this great big beast. I began to run as fast as I could, screaming at the top of my lungs. I was almost to my campsite and ran into the clearing, still screaming. My boyfriend ran to me thinking I was hurt. As he held on to me, only one word came from my mouth: werewolf. Of course, no one believed me, and of course, the giant wolf man was gone. The next day, my boyfriend and I hiked the circumference of the lake together. When we reached the bee caves, I began to feel my chest tighten. A short way past the caves, my boyfriend said, "Wait a minute." He knelt down. There, on the ground, was the largest paw print I had ever seen. My boyfriend said, "That's no dog print nor a bear print. It's time to go home." We left and didn't look back. That was the summer of 1977. Today's second Dogman encounter. So me and my friend and sister were exploring this abandoned house near my house. We climbed in the house and we were coming up the stairs to the second floor when we heard a noise of something moving. My sister was at the top of the steps and I was somewhere near the middle. I pointed my flashlight around the middle of the room and we all saw this big gray furry creature that looked like it was hunched over. I saw a tail, and my sister said she saw big meaty shoulders, humanoid hands, and glowing yellow eyes. We quickly realized whatever it was not going to be too happy with us being in its territory, and we got out of there as fast as possible. What really sent chills down our spine was the fact that when we walked around the house, we noticed that there was a ladder going up to the second story. In order to get into the house, we had to step onto this barrel and climb onto a metal pole and hoist ourselves to the entrance. That was about 7 to 8 feet off the ground. So whatever the creature was probably could not have gotten up the way we did. If it used the ladder, it was definitely something humanoid. Once we got back home, we did our research about possible animals that it could have been, and living in Virginia, there were not any animals that resembled the creature we saw at all. It was too big to be a fox or a cat. It had different fur than a wolf. It had a tail, so it couldn't have been a bear. So we did some research into cryptids. We came across some stories of Dogman, and when we looked at the pictures that came up, it seemed to resemble what we saw. I read some stories about the Dogman, and they all said people that had seen it usually form obsessions over it. And my sister, being the only one that saw its eyes, was ranting and raving about being so curious as wanting to go back and see it again. My sister drew a sketch of what she had saw and was doing some tarot readings after we got home. She had her cards stacked on her sketchbook, and a bug crawled onto it and started going crazy, running around until it stepped on the top card of the deck. Then it stopped moving. My friend picked up the top card, and it was a Wolfman card in my sister's Native American tarot deck. We were thinking of going back and investigating soon, but I just wanted to tell my story before we did. Today's third encounter. So for the past few months, there's been something that seems to be stalking my house. Weird things began to happen soon after we started clearing out some of the wooded area behind the house. At first, I didn't think anything of the weird sounds because we have coyotes in the area. Now, as someone that lives in a fairly large family, we all like to joke about things being supernatural and maybe it's a creature of some sort. But none of us really gave it a real thought. After the weird happenings continued, I started to get more nervous. Me being nervous leads to dumb decisions, so when I smelled something that smelled like a rotten corpse, I decided to take a walk into the woods. It was about 10 at night when I left my house and made my way to the tree line, with only the flashlight on my phone. I heard something to the side of me. It sounded like a twig snapping, so I backed up and shined my light side to side. 2 pinpoints of light which looked like eye reflections in the light. Thinking it was probably a deer, as it was too high to be one of my cats or dogs, I started to talk to it. Just things like, "Hey there," and "It's okay, come here." Just as the thing started to move towards me, my neighbor let out their dog, and she ran standing in front of me and began to growl, a deep, angry sound which I'd never heard her make before. I quickly ran back to my house and checked over the video feed that was pointed towards the barn. It hadn't caught much other than me standing there and the 2 reflecting eyes. When the dog didn't calm down about 5 minutes or so, I went back out, this time only standing on the porch. I whistled to the dog and waited a few seconds. I nearly jumped out of my skin when I heard my whistle again. I stood there for a second, thinking it could have just been an echo, but I heard it again. It sounded just like what I had done before. At that moment, I made my way back inside my house when I heard my own voice saying, "It's okay." It repeated over and over. At this point, I was terrified, so I yelled, "Sadie, home!" and ducked inside my house. After locking all the doors, I ran to the cameras. All I saw was a deer-like head sticking out of the tree line. I looked at it in horror. I remembered it having antlers, but it was larger than any buck I had ever seen in my life. I slept in the front room that night with all the lights on. Nothing happened for a few nights, so I figured I could sleep out in the front room without having to keep my eyes on every window. It was about 1 or 2 in the morning when I woke up to scuffling on the wooden deck. I watched the camera as a black figure climbed onto the 2 chairs underneath the camera. I stayed as still as I could, watching, and it turned its head, looking at the camera as if it was trying to make sure I was aware of its presence. I saw that it had the same abnormal antlers as the thing from the woods a couple days ago. I rolled over and tried to get some sleep. I woke up the next morning leaning against the glass of my door, which was probably unrelated and just stress-related sleepwalking, which I do sometimes, mostly if something has frightened me. The next day it snowed, so we put the cats in the garage so they'd be warm. I stepped out after sunset to go and sit in the hot tub for a while. I was probably in it for 5 minutes before I started hearing a cat meowing. I quickly got out and went inside, knowing that there were no cats outside at all, so there would be nothing to make that sound. That night, I called my boyfriend and asked him about what he had seen. He told me when we were playing a game of hide and seek that he felt like something was watching him. When he turned around, he said he saw something partially hidden behind a tree. He claimed it was a humanoid figure taller than he was, with what looked like antlers and dirty, shallow-looking skin. I told him about what I had seen and heard, and when I mentioned how it seemed to mimic my voice, he said he thought he heard it calling him when he was out in the woods. This thing still comes around, but I try not to be scared of it. As if it was going to attack, wouldn't it have done it already? Even with the positive thinking, I still feel like I'm being hunted. So if anyone has any clue of what this could be, I would appreciate it. The geographic location is West Virginia, out in the woods. 3 amazing, yet terrifying cryptid encounters. The first encounter, the Texas Dogman. God, that woman is very lucky. You know, it was a miracle that she made it back to the camp. Just imagine what would have happened if she didn't. I don't want to imagine. The second encounter, the Virginia Dogman. Now, very, very creepy encounter. This Dogman is situated inside of an abandoned home. And then the girl is now fascinated by it, which is true. A lot of people that have had encounters with the Dogman become obsessed. I started a channel, and a lot of my subscribers that have had encounters listen to multiple Dogman YouTube channels and read multiple Dogman books. It is definitely an obsession. Our brain it doesn't comprehend. It doesn't want us to comprehend what we saw. And that's what we are learned as children. It's not normal, so it doesn't exist. And then our brain starts saying, well, I did see this. I need more. The third encounter, the West Virginia cryptid that mimics. Definitely creepy. West Virginia as a whole, the Appalachians are definitely creepy. I've got one subscriber who will know I'm talking about them that I talk to fairly regularly through the comment section that lives in West Virginia, my West Virginian hillbilly buddy. There's just so many weird, creepy things out there. Dogman, the white things of West Virginia Appalachians. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, maybe it was a skinwalker. Well, skinwalkers, as we know, are Navajo witches. But, as we discussed a while ago, there are variations of a skinwalker that aren't really a skinwalker. We just don't have a name for these creatures. So maybe it's some sort of creature that has learned to mimic a crawler or a shapeshifter or something. But definitely not something I want to screw with. My native heritage, I have stories of wendigos and stuff like that, which have the antlers. But it's definitely not a wendigo. Just maybe it's a deer man. I don't know. But it's definitely creepy. Actually, I think if I don't remember correctly, I'm going to go back and look. But the Alberta deer man, I think that creature does some mimicking. I'll have to look back and look at that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed these encounters. I'm going to apologize right now. I'm still sick as a dog. You guys can probably hear it in my voice. And it's 105 degrees in upstate New York, and my AC is broken. So I have a fan pointed directly on me and sweat pouring off of my face on top of being sick. So I'm going to apologize for this upload sounding shitty. And with that, guys, I bid you farewell.